Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Honeybee Stamp's new Vintage Love paper pad and also their Textiles and Texture vintage paper pad. I have both of them stored in one of Honeybee Stamp's paper and embellishment storage pouch. It fits two of their paper pads, and you can also add their pearl or gem sticker package in the very front. I'll also be using the Vintage Mailbox A2 card base die set, the Vintage Flora stamp, Bold Backgrounds Vintage Roses die set, and also Postmarked stamp set. There are coordinating dies, but for this video I'm only using the stamps. For the background of my card, I selected a pattern from the Textiles and Texture vintage paper pad, and I'll be stamping this paper using the Vintage Flora stamp. This is a red rubber stamp, and as you can see, it is full A2 size. I'm using Distress Oxide Antique Linen Color. I left the stamp on my desk, used the ink pad to ink up the entire image, and I wasn't concerned if I got everything inked up perfectly. Then I took the piece of pattern paper and gently placed it on top of the stamp. Most of the background will be covered up with the mailbox die, but I still went ahead and inked up the entire stamp. Using the same antique linen color, I'll add a little bit of ink all around the outside edge. With a fun stamped image and ink, I've completely changed the background, but you can still see the fun texture look of the pattern paper. Next, I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. Now I'll set this aside and start working on the mailbox. I've already gone ahead and cut out all of the pieces for the mailbox. The pattern paper is from the Vintage Love paper pad. Here's the main piece of the mailbox. It's fun how you can open up the front of the mailbox and also the little slot piece at the top. There's another piece you can add to the front of your mailbox. It has all the lovely etch detail and the word post. To help all that etch detail stand out, I have some gold ink. I have Honeybee Stamp's metallic gold ink, and I'm using the refill. I'll put a little bit on an acrylic block, and with my finger I'll gently rub the ink all over the etch detail of the mailbox, and I'm also adding ink along the edges. This is a pigment ink, so it can take longer to dry, but I found by doing this technique it really didn't take that long at all. Once I'm happy with the front piece, I'll start working on the main mailbox. There's a lovely floral etch detail toward the top of the mailbox and also some etch detail at the bottom. After adding ink to both of those areas, I'll also add ink along the very edge. And I have two final pieces. The decorative piece that goes in front of the slot at the top, and also the piece that goes behind, although you'll only see the very bottom and top. Once I'm done adding gold ink to the mailbox pieces, I'll start working on the postcard. And this die is not part of the Vintage Mailbox set. This is a separate die called Mini Postcard. The die adds lots of beautiful etch detail. The pattern paper I use for the postcard is from the Textiles and Texture vintage paper pad. To help some of that detail stand out just a little bit more, I'm using Distress Oxide Vintage Photo Ink. Now I'll pull out the Postmarked stamp set. There are lots of fun images on this set that you could use to decorate your postcard. I selected one of the mini stamps, a flower image, and I'll stamp the image right on top of the etched stamp detail on the postcard using Distress Oxide Peeled Paint Ink Color. And I forgot to turn on my camera, but I also stamped the little wavy lines next to the floral stamp image. Now I'll start assembling the mailbox. I'm using Honeybee Stamp's Precision Tip Glue. I'm putting glue behind the areas that won't open up, so I'm not adding it behind that slot or the front door of the mailbox. For the background piece of the mailbox, I use some off-white pearlescent cardstock. Since I'm not having any of the mailbox areas open up, you really won't be able to see this piece, but it will add some extra stability. Now I'll assemble the two pieces for that opening slot at the top of the mailbox. And I will be popping it up with some foam dimension. I'm using Honeybee Stamps black foam strips. I'll add 2 strips on the back to get good coverage. Remove the release paper and add this decorative piece on the front of the mailbox. I'll also pop up the post decorative piece, which is the opening door of the mailbox, using the same black foam strips from Honeybee Stamps. I'll add 1 foam strip around the outside edge and also add some smaller pieces on the inside. That way there isn't one area that sags. Now remove the release paper and attach the front of the door on the mailbox. You can see even with this piece attached, you can still open up that front door. I was ready to put the postcard inside the mailbox and I realized I forgot to stamp the words. One of the images on the Postmarked stamp set has a bunch of words and it fits perfectly on the etch lines of the postcard die cut. I'll ink it up using Distress Oxide Vintage Photo ink, trying very carefully to line it up with those etch lines. I was happy that I successfully did it without leading into the video. Most of the postcard will be tucked inside the mailbox, but I will have the very end sticking out so you can see the stamp and some of the writing. I'll add some foam dimension inside the door, just at the very bottom. Then I'll put glue and some double-sided adhesive tape on the back of the postcard and adhere it down. And a little tip when using the glue, it does help to take off the cap. Once I have glue on the back, I'll adhere the postcard inside the mailbox, and I'm putting it at a slight angle. Then I'll pull back the top portion of the door and put a little bit of glue behind. That way it all stays shut. Now I'll place a large acrylic block on top for some added weight while the glue dries. Now I'll flip over the mailbox and I will be popping it up with more foam dimension using the same black foam strips. I'm almost finished with this sheet, so I will need to grab another one. This is my favorite foam dimension from Honeybee Stamps. It's available in black and also white. And I like that it's not super thick, but it still adds that pop of dimension. Once I have good coverage on the back, I'll remove the release paper and adhere my mailbox on the front of my card. And as you can see, this is a full A2 size. So just part of the background pattern paper will be visible. And you could make your card with just the mailbox. You could leave the little door open so you could add a little message on the inside, or you could write it on the back of the mailbox. I thought it'd be fun to add the mailbox image on an A2 background. Now I'll add the decorative pieces on the mailbox. I cut them out from some gold mirror cardstock from my stash. There's the little keyhole piece, the metal piece at the very top of the mailbox, and 2 small pieces at the edge of that opening slot, although I covered up one of them with the postcard, so I really only need to use one on the left side. I am using an embellishment wand to pick up that tiny gold piece. Now I'll set aside my card and start working on some flowers to decorate the mailbox. I'll be adding the medium-sized roses from the Bold Backgrounds Vintage Roses die set. There are 4 layers for the flower. For the main flower, I cut it out from some off-white cardstock, and I'm adding some light pink color using Distress Oxide Victorian Velvet ink. I guess it's more of a purplish pink color, but I think on the finished flower it looks more pink. For the very center of the flower, I cut it out from some light yellow cardstock. I have all of the die cut pieces on Waffle Flowers mini stencil mat, and I'm adding just that little bit of ink on the areas that will be visible. Honeybee Stamps never disappoints with their layered flowers. I love the beautiful etch detail on each of the pieces, and they're very easy to layer together. I'll start with the background piece, then I'll add the next layer, and one final layer for the petals. I'll assemble all the petal pieces first, then I'll add the center to the flowers. The pieces aren't super small, but it does help to have a pair of tweezers while putting glue on the back and layering them all together. To make sure I didn't lose all my small die cut pieces, I had everything organized in one of scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. I have one more flower, then I'll start adding the center of the flowers. I was thinking at first I would need an embellishment one for the small centerpiece, but it's actually not that small, so instead I'll use my reverse tweezers. Pick up that small piece, put just a tiny bit of glue on the back and adhere it on the flower. The bottom edge of the centerpiece, sort of a V, it lines up with the top edge of the bottom petal. With most of Honeybee Stamp's flowers, you'll know it's all assembled correctly when all of the pieces have the edge detail. But if you're still unsure, you can always download the layering guide on Honeybee Stamp's website. Once I have all 3 flowers assembled, I'm pulling out the antique linen ink again and lightly brushing some ink along the edge of all of the petals. I'm just using my finger and lightly brushing it on the edge of the flowers, giving them more of a distressed vintage look. I'll add 1 flower in the upper right-hand corner of the mailbox and 2 in the lower left-hand corner. I'll also be adding some leaves, and these are from the main background piece of the Bold Backgrounds Vintage Roses set. When you cut out the main piece, there's lots of different leaves, so I'm just selecting a few of them to tuck behind the flowers. The green cardstock color I used for the leaves is fairly bright, so I will use the antique linen ink and brush some along the edge of all of the leaves, toning down that green color just a little bit. I'll add 2 small leaves behind the flower in the upper right-hand corner, and I'll glue the leaves down, then the flower. It's fun that the background piece with all of the leaves has a variety of different sizes and direction of leaves. I tried to use more of the smaller leaves on this card. After the first flower is adhered, I'll try to figure out placement of the leaves that'll go behind the 2 flowers in the lower left-hand corner. I was looking through all the leftover leaves on this set, trying to find one that would work a little bit better above the flower on the left side. Now I'll use more of the antique linen ink and lightly brush it on the end of all of the leaves. I'll put glue on the back, adhere the leaves down first. But before I started gluing those down, I did go and clean the ink off the end of my finger. Didn't want to accidentally touch any other area on my card with it. I'll add the 1 leaf at the bottom, more in the middle of the card. Then I'll add a leaf above the flower on the left side and the final leaf underneath the flowers in the lower left-hand corner. Then I'll glue the flower down on the left side. For the final flower, I will put some foam dimension behind it on the right side, and on the area where it sits on the other flower, I'll add a little bit of glue. That way it stays at the same level. I decided not to add a sentiment on the front of the card. Once I know who the recipient will be, I'll stamp a sentiment on the inside. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love how the cards turned out. The Vintage Mailbox die set from Honeybee Stamps is so fun. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links in the description box below. And if you haven't checked out the Vintage Love release from Honeybee Stamps, I will add a link for the entire release. If you enjoyed my video, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.